everyone, Joe again, coming to you for I think number 17 of these videos. I want to show some recent acquisitions that I made. Again, my cat is back on the bed. She always seems to want to help me make these videos when it's time. So I'm going to show you some stuff I picked up. Not all of this was picked up this week. Some of it was in weeks past and I just haven't gotten around to showing it yet. But some of it is this week. And I'm going to start with an item that I actually meant to show you in the last video and I just forgot. And I don't know if this was a good pickup or not. You guys can let me know. I'm always sort of interested in finding interesting music-related items, and this is actually a hardcover book, like a coffee table book. This is a sealed, shrink-wrapped book called Elvis Recording Career Forever in the Groove 50th Anniversary, and I got this at the Goodwill store for $6.98. And as I've said before, I'm not really an Elvis fan too much, but I am a fan of books on recording. I was not a Bob Dylan fan until I read the book, Clinton Halen's book, Bob Dylan: The Complete Recording Sessions, I think, and that got me interested in the actual music. And same for Mark Lewis's The Beatles: Abbey Road Studio Diaries that I read years ago. I was already a Beatles fan, but books on the recording process are very interesting to me. And so I don't know if I'm going to keep this or not. I was kind of torn. I don't know if it's a good price. I see that there are copies for sale on Amazon anywhere from like $3 to $20 or more. So I thought maybe it'd be a good trade item if nothing else. But as I said in the last video, I don't like to keep sealed items. So I'll just need to decide if I'm going to keep this. If I am, I'm going to unseal it and read it. If I'm not going to keep it, I'll leave it sealed just to trade it to someone who will be able to use it more than I will. So you let me know if you thought that was a good pickup or not. Picked up some vinyl now, yay! How about this? Classic, original 2 LP soundtrack album for some little sci-fi movie that came out in the late 70s, 77. Guy who directed American Graffiti made it. I don't know. I think it's going to be big. So we'll have to see. It's got the original gatefold in there, but I've already bagged it. So you've all seen this. Probably most of you have it, but I won't take it out of the plastic bag. But what I thought was interesting, I actually got that on eBay, and the seller threw this in without telling me. This is a story. It's like C-3PO tells the story of Star Wars. So here's the book. It has become detached, but the book is still there and complete. Yeah, kind of a scene by scene breakdown. Kind of a nice little find there, and the vinyl is not terrible, but it's a nice playable copy. It looks maybe like a VG Plus. Now, so that was a nice free surprise that I didn't expect to get. But now I want to show you my favorite find of the week. Oh, this was a big one for me. One of my favorites. Yeah, Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited. The second of his trilogy of folk rock albums. So he went from Bringing It All Back Home to this to Blonde on Blonde. And I would love to get all three of those on vinyl. This is not an original pressing. This is a 1970s repressing, according to Discogs. And it's a stereo copy, not mono. But the vinyl is beautiful. It's got the later Columbia label. It's not like the 1i or 2i label. It's the more modern label. It's the Pac-Man Fever label. So it's kind of that 70s Columbia label they used, from the 70s into the 80s. This was a thrift store find for 99 cents. I picked this up. I haven't played it yet, but really nice cover on that. And the vinyl is equally clean. This doesn't look like it's been played much. But it has, of course, their two big hits from that era, Something So Strong and Don't Dream It's Over. Love both of those songs. So I hope I'll enjoy the whole album. I have it on good authority that I will. Here's a nice double LP, the Chicago Transit Authority, the first album by Chicago. This is actually the back cover. This is the front cover. I don't know why you'd put that little tiny logo on the front cover. I think this would make a much better cover. But this has some of their great early work, like Beginnings, and let me show you that nice gatefold there. Have not spun this yet either, but very much look forward to it. I like a lot of the early Chicago music when it was still very horn based rather than Peter Cetera kind of bass. Then I was very excited to pick up 4 LPs by one of my favorite bands of all time. A band I have everything they've ever done on CD, but I'm trying to get the vinyl too. This is replacing a vinyl I had in my other collection. Of course, it's Jethro Tull. This is a repressing, Living in the Past. The original pressings of this were like a hardcover book with like embossed gold on the cover. This is not. This is a later repressing Blue Chrysalis label. It's just kind of a standard album, cardboard, nothing very fancy or ornate about it. But the music is still great. This album is a lot less important than it used to be because almost this entire album has been reissued as bonus tracks on the various Jethro Tull releases. So if you pick up the bonus tracks, you pretty much have this album. And a few of these tracks are from regular albums anyway. This is a compilation, a 2 LP compilation. But see if you guys can answer a question for me because I honestly don't remember. But here, I'll show you the gatefold first. Yeah, Jethro Tull, one of my favorites. And not just because my favorite era of Jethro Tull is the 70s, and their drummer at that time had the same last name that I have. So that always impressed me. So I wanted to ask you. This is one of the sleeves, dust jackets that came in here, and it says side 1, side 2, and here is side 3 and side 4. The second dust jacket for the second LP that I got is completely blank. So is that normal? Am I missing like a fancy dust jacket, or is that how this album was shipped? I can't remember from my first copy whether I'm missing. It's fine if I got a plain dust jacket, but I just wondered if the second dust jacket is supposed to look like this. So I don't know. Let me know if I'm missing a dust jacket, if you would. And then I have 3 more Tull albums I picked up. This is a U.S. pressing of Benefit, a much cleaner cover than I've typically seen this album in. Um, this album usually is quite beat up for some reason. This is just one of those ones, like the best of the Guess Who. Whenever I find it, it's beat up. So nice to find a pretty clean copy of this. This is the US pressing, which has a slightly different track listing than the UK edition does, which is the one that's on CD. This has the US single of Teacher, which was not included on the UK album except as a bonus track on the new CD version. So, and this omits a couple of songs, Alive and Well and Living In, I think, and no insides on here. There's one other that's I think omitted from the U.S. pressing. So, a really good album. No matter which version you have, Benefit is a very strong album. Definitely worth picking up. Here now are 2 of the lesser well-regarded Tull albums. This was intended to be Ian Anderson's first solo album, and it's just called A. And the name of the album came from the reel-to-reel tape boxes. When he was recording the album at night, the studio engineer would just write A for Ian Anderson, and somehow that became the name of the album. So this ended up being a Jethro Tull album, yet it's a very different sound. It's coming right off that folk trilogy of Songs from the Wood, Heavy Horses, and Stormwatch. And so this is kind of a synthy record. It's like we're just going to change our sound now. So a lot of people don't like this as much because it very much starts to sound like Yes or prog rock rather than some of their other stuff. But this is the one. This is the last album before their hiatus. This is Under Wraps. And this is pretty much universally regarded as their worst album. And it's one of the only Jethro Tull albums that I'm not intimately familiar with. Because the couple of times I played it, I didn't really like it. Because it's very mid-80s keyboardy. And I don't think of Tull as a keyboard band. But after this album, they would go away for a 3 to 4 year hiatus and come back with Crest of a Knave, which is one of their best albums. And it's the album you may remember back in the 80s that won the Best Heavy Metal Hard Rock Grammy, and it's like a folky English, Fairport Convention type record. It's so funny that that actually won any kind of major award. Everyone expected Metallica to win. Oh, and I just noticed, I didn't realize at the time, this is actually a promo, gold stamp promo. I didn't realize that until just now. And then I picked up one of my very, very favorite jazz records of all time. This is a brand new album. I don't buy a lot of new vinyl, but this was one I paid the full retail price for. This is Dexter Gordon's One Flight Up, 1964, recorded in France. This is the album where I learned where I learned to love jazz. It is still the finest single greatest jazz album that I've ever heard. It's only 3 tracks. Track 1 is called Tanya. It's 18 and a half minutes long. It takes up the whole first side. It is one of those things where the first time I heard that song, I sat up and I said, "What is that?" Because I've never heard anything like that in my entire life. I have to have that. So I've had it on CD for a while. This was just reissued on vinyl, the Blue Note reissue. I think it came out in July, and I picked it up 2 or 3 days ago. Special ordered it at my record store. So that's how much I love this album. Had to buy it, even though I've already got a great copy on CD, and doesn't need to be said. Of course, it's amazing on vinyl. I played it last night. Perfect reproduction down to the liner notes. Um, go on Spotify or some service. If you've never heard this album, check out Tanya. That is an amazing song. The album is One Flight Up, and boy, do I love it. And then I bought one other fancy record. I don't buy a lot of the more expensive vinyl, but this is a 1997 2 LP reissue of the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are You Experienced? 180 gram vinyl, beautiful gatefold. I'll take this out just so you can see it. It's got a lot of bonus tracks on there. Um, in fact, a whole second disc of extra stuff. Let's just see there. At least my memory of this is that this was originally a single disc. I don't think this album was a double, but just a beautiful, beautiful copy. And that I saw that come through, and it got mounted on the wall at my local record store, and I said, I've got to take that home. Love some Hendrix, love him even more on vinyl. How could I say no? So, all right, we're making good time here. We're about halfway through this stack. The rest will go quickly, I think. Picked up a copy, getting this again to replace the copy from my original collection. Not much to be said. Great album. Probably McCartney's best solo record. Even better than Ram, I think, which a lot of people say is his best. Heavy wear to the cover. The vinyl's pretty decent. I think we're all pretty familiar with this. Got the song Let Me Roll It, which is one of my favorite lesser known, or I shouldn't say lesser known, but less, not a hit single necessarily. And, oh, look. I didn't realize for a long, long time that this is Christopher Lee. Yeah, pretty cool. Next up, two from Electric Light Orchestra. Nothing so special here. These are very common records. I don't know these intimately well. I had a few ELO albums. And, this is written here in black ink on a black border, and I didn't even notice it until I owned this like 3 or 4 days. If you just look at it quickly, it's actually really showing up better on the camera than it does when you're actually just looking at the album. It's very easy to omit someone has written Sapolsky right on the record. I might not have bought it if I'd noticed that, but maybe. I like this cover a lot, the Discovery album, and of course the back cover there. Very Prince of Persia. Alright, almost done. Some jazz up next. Here is a 2-disc LP, the complete Artie Shaw, Volume 1, 1938 to 39. Of course, one of the great pioneers of swing back in the 30s. His music is very common on 78. This is a radio station copy, As you can see here, there is a stamp, and what does it say? Whoops. WDNA FM March 1st, 1976. So just a few months before the bicentennial, this was stamped into a radio station's library. Pretty cool. Another jazz record. Here we go. Stan Kenton, Capitol Jazz Classics Volume 2, Artistry in Jazz. If you remember, not too long ago, I showed a Stan Kenton 45 called Artistry in Jazz, or something to that effect. Artistry in Blues. But yeah, it's on here. Rare and previously unissued compositions. So I have not spun this yet. Hopefully I'll like it. Cover's in pretty good shape, apart from a tiny bit of ring wear up here, and similar on the front, some wear here. But overall quite good, and the vinyl looks very nice to be a thrift store find. And we'll finish up with two albums probably most of you have in your collection, and this is not my first copy of this. Jackson Browne, Running on Empty. Had this on vinyl, then I had it on CD, now I've got it on vinyl again. Beautiful copy, slightly beat up cover, but it's a great album. Love it. Glad to have it on vinyl again. And then last but not least, actually probably my favorite Billy Joel album. Not that I have a lot of favorite Billy Joel albums, but this one has sentimental value for me, and I put it in the sleeve here. I don't know, when I was about 12 or 13, this album came out, and I just remember playing it all the time, and my mom loving it too, because it's a very 50s kind of sound. So she was a big fan of this record too. We played it in the car a lot, on cassette, and just very warm feelings associated with this album. Glad to have it on vinyl for $1, and I'm sure it'll be good to have it again. It's got the big hits were like Tell Her About It and Uptown Girl and the title track and Innocent Man. It's got Keeping the Faith on there. Almost a greatest hits, frankly. But the ones I really liked were some of the lesser known tracks, the ones that are really 50s kind of sounding. The Longest Time, of course, was a 50s sounding track. That was a hit. But there are others on here, very doo-wop kind of stuff. I like that album a lot, and I'm glad to have it back. So that's kind of what I've picked up since we last talked. And let me know about that Living in the Past dust jacket if you have it. Let me know if I'm missing a fancy one, or also what you think of that Elvis book. Is that a good find? I don't know. I don't buy a lot of music books, but that looked like it might have been worth picking up, just because I personally like books on the recording process. So let me know what you think about those or anything else I picked up. Thanks. Talk to you soon, and happy Labor Day if you're in the States.